Excellent. Thank you so much, Ashley. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a webinar, which is going to be packed with a lot of great content, which we're going to cover how we can actually improve the breadth and coverage of your threat hunting with ADX, additional MITRE ATT&CK techniques, and also more entities. I'm Cristhofer Romeo Muñoz. I am a program manager, part of the customer experience team. And I also have my great colleague here, Ben. Ben?
Nice to meet you. I'm really happy to be able to give you guys some great demos and hear some of your fantastic feedback today.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Perfect. Yeah, so we definitely have a really jam-packed schedule today. And this is the agenda. We're going to cover why threat hunting. Why is threat hunting such a imperative journey that we recommend every security operations centers to go through? We have a lot of demos on the recent UI enhancements that we have added to the threat hunting focus area in Microsoft Sentinel. This includes the hunting dashboard refresh, MITRE ATT&CK technique and enhanced entity support, and also the Azure Data Explorer cross-query support as well. We also have a lot of polls in which we really want this to be an interactive webinar where we truly get to understand your needs and your use cases when it comes to threat hunting and how they correlate back to the use cases that you are satisfying across the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Okay. Excellent. So before we even dive into the recent UI enhancements, it is critical for us to talk about why is threat hunting such an imperative journey across every single security operations out there. And the reason why is that, when it comes to cybersecurity, we are living in a very tenacious environment. And for SOCs, it often feels like a game of whack-a-mole, right? As our tools get better, as we get more innovations when it comes to our tools to be able to detect and stay appraised of new tactics, cyber criminals, they are creating different ways to actually get around it and avoid detection. Now what happens is that oftentimes whenever a sophisticated cyber criminal gets into your environment, they're there for weeks, they're there for months and even years, and what they're doing is that they're just gathering information and they're escalating privileges while you don't even know what's happening. Now, the most concerning part of it is that if you wait until your reactive tools to be able to provide you that alert, it could definitely be costly, to your enterprise as well. This is the reason why we have to change our mindset and we have to change the way that we approach these different use cases. The traditional focus for security operations centers is to focus on detections and focus on known patterns. So oftentimes you will see that a SOC focuses on the reactive efforts instead of focusing on the proactive. So the mindset shift is changing from alerting to more searching. So again, that mindset shift is to assume breach and also become more proactive. And that is the biggest problem right now is that, because we have these different tools, like for example, endpoint detection tools that identify potential incidents, these are all based on known behaviors. Again, cyber criminals, they're becoming more innovative now and they're going around that, and that makes it even harder for us to stay appraised and also do our jobs as well. So again, instead of going for reactive efforts, we are actually trying to go one level deeper, and that is by focusing and searching for hidden adversaries, focusing and searching for hidden shadows that indicate compromise and that also indicate that there's some sort of sign of intrusion. So what we do here is that we recommend every single enterprise to actually integrate and implement the MITRE ATT&CK framework. The MITRE ATT&CK framework is a great tool that can help for formulating a hypothesis when it comes to threat hunting. This allows us to be able to stay appraised of tactics, techniques, and also common knowledge. This framework is consisted of different tactics, like for example here, as you can see on the screen, we have persistence. We also have privilege escalation all the way down to command and control. So this allows us to search and be able to and be able to stay appraised and be more proactive when it comes to the different activities that are going across our security operations center. So there's two different messages that I definitely want to convey as part of this webinar. The number one is assume breach and be proactive. That is the predicated mindset that we have to adopt. Number two is that SOCs should not wait for an alert to trigger in order to start searching for breaches. We should go and be proactive just because we know how tenacious and how innovative sophisticated cyber criminals are becoming today. Now, we talked about wide threat hunting. Oftentimes, the biggest challenge is that enterprises have a challenge when it comes to how do we actually conduct hunting? How do we get to a more proactive stage when it comes to our security operations center? And this is how it looks like. Right? The whole scope behind threat hunting is based on clues and also based on hypotheses. This is where we are looking for, based on different tools, like for example, threat intelligence reports. Like for example, if we see that there's a new malicious malware out there, based off of that, we can create a hypothesis, and based off that hypothesis, we can then go ahead and conduct a search, right? So after the hypothesis, and we get that from either external or even internal resources, we conduct that search to be able to identify whether or not we have any true positive of that hypothesis. The great thing is that within Microsoft Sentinel, we do have ways to provide a seamless ways to search, and we have that through the threat hunting dashboard, where we have out of the box hunting queries that map back to the MITRE ATT&CK framework that can provide you that easy entry point to understand whether or not we have that sign of intrusion. So after we conduct that search, if we do not have any hits, we go back. But of course, if we do have signs of intrusion, and we have a proven fact, that is where we pivot and we try to expand the scope. And the whole scope at this stage is that, aside from searching, based on the results that we get through our investigation and through this threat hunting approach, now we are developing new content. So now that search is now becoming a high fidelity analytic rule. And then, of course, that can also be incorporated into our incident response, that if that analytic rule does trigger, we do have the processes and we do have the steps to actually respond to it. So again, this right here is just a chart that was provided by Gartner. I highly recommend you to refer to it as a way for an entry point for threat hunting. With that being said, I'll go ahead and follow up, and I will refer to Nick to talk about the recent UI enhancement that we have added to threat hunting in Microsoft Sentinel.
Hi, Al and Chris. Thanks for that really great summary and introduction. I think that frames our conversation today really well. Today, I'm going to talk about some recent user experience enhancements that we introduced a couple weeks ago at Ignite. And without further ado, I'd like to show you a demo of a refreshed hunting dashboard. So let me get my screen up here. We're going to be going back and forth quite a bit today. So thanks for bearing with us during these transitions. Here we go. So for those of you who are not familiar, there we go. This is our hunting dashboard. The hunting dashboard, you get to it by going to hunting here on the left-hand nav. I'm going to get rid of that so that you guys can see more of our dashboard. Here we have over 200 built-in queries provided by the Microsoft Security Threat Intelligence Center, also known as our Mystic team. Threat hunting queries enable you to look for malicious behaviors that don't necessarily rise to the level of alerts, but still would probably be worth investigating if you're trying to proactively identify threats. The most popular feature for this particular interface is the Run All Queries button. So this was something that we had in the original version of our hunting dashboard, but due to log analytics throttling reasons, we could only display what was on the, or search what was on the page. Now we've expanded that to be able to search all of the queries that we have active in the environment. Here we have 321 queries. So I'm going to click that button now. That includes the built-in queries and the custom queries. And this process can take a couple minutes, depending on the time frame you're searching over, depending on the amount of data that you're searching over. So I'm going to pivot over to this particular version of the hunting dashboard while that other one completes in another tab. So the second feature I want to talk about is MITRE technique mappings. So one of the other purposes of hunting queries is it helps you provide a starting point for filling gaps in your detection or analytics coverage. Now, many customers are now using the MITRE ATT&CK framework in order to measure their analytic detection coverage and come out with ideas on what are good analytics to do. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the top row here is all of the tactics that Chris showed in that slide with the iceberg in it, which was a great slide. So you have things like privilege escalation and credential access and lateral movement. Those are tactics that attackers will use in your environment. And then each of the particular boxes underneath each tactic is a technique, which shows a very specific method that an attacker might use in order to execute that particular tactic. Now, as you can see, there's these little identifiers like T116 that specify what each of these techniques are. So let's say I want to go to my hunting dashboard, and now that I found a gap in my detection coverage, let's say search for, let's say T1568. I think I got that one right. Let's see. Okay, and now we have a bunch of techniques regarding this particular technique, which has to do with DNS abuse, which was recently part of the SolariGate attack. Now I can select this button here, and now all of my hunting queries are selected. As you can see, my time filter is now for the last 30 days, and now I can run just the selected queries, and this should complete pretty quickly. All right, so we're getting a bunch of things without results. Aha! Now I've got these 4 queries that have results. So if I want to start developing my threat analytics, I probably want to start looking here. And the hunting dashboards use these tactics or techniques in order to guide me to where I want to get started. Now let's go back to our run all queries button. Let's see how we're doing. We've only run 250 queries. I anticipated this result because it takes some time, and I have another version of the dashboard that has run all of the queries, so we can keep moving more quickly with the demo. So right now, by default, we're showing the results for all 320 queries. So I just want to filter down now to the ones that actually have results. So what I can do is I can come out with a filtered view where I'm only showing positive numeric values for the results column. So I'm going to apply that. So now I'm down to another subset of these queries. But that's still a lot of queries to kind of go zero in on. One thing I do want to point out is that we have this new MITRE tactic bar. It used to be up in the right-hand corner, but now we have it as sort of much more prominently displayed right above the table. And when I say it's dynamic, it actually changes to show just the results that you have filtered for. So if I want to dive in and look at the execution queries, I know I have 19 execution queries that have results. And if I can also just filter on this. So if I click here, I'm now only showing the specific 19 queries that are mapped to the execution tactic. And if I click on that again, the filter goes away. Now, how do I zero in on what specific hunting queries might want to contain anomalies that I'm interested in? Well, I can one of the things I can do is I can just sort by volume. This I could do with the original hunting dashboard, and I can look at the onesie twosies events that represent anomalies that might be unusual things in my environment. But as you can see, there's still a lot of them. So how do I figure out which one of these are interesting? Well, now we've started running what we're calling delta queries. If you take a look at the delta queries, these are the things where we've run in the last 48 to 24 hours, and then 24 hours to right now. And now I can apply some filters to be able to see which ones have the highest percentage change. So now I'm looking at queries that have increased between 50 and 75%, or 75 to 100, or greater than 100% increase. Now I'm going to just apply that really quickly. And hopefully the screen resolution you can see. If you look in the right-hand column, this is our results percentage delta. And here we can see there are about 7 or 8 queries that went from 0 to 1, 0 to 2, or 0 to 3. So it went from not occurring to occurring. We also have ones that, oh, let me, I should filter. Other queries that have had larger spikes. So these are the places where you have much more tractable list of queries that you can go after, and are a much better starting point for a narrow starting point to give you the best return on investment for what it is that you want to hunt on. And that concludes the demo of the hunting dashboard. Chris, do you want to take it from here?
Sure can, sure can. Great demonstration there of the recent refresh that we have here for the hunting dashboard. Now what we want to do is that we want to pivot into a poll, because we really want to understand more of where you're at today when it comes to threat hunting and how you store data and why you may threat hunt across your environment. So let me go ahead and share my screen one more time. So for the poll, what we're going to do is that we're going to go to pollev.com/Sentinel team. You can also scan the QR code that we have here available. That's going to take you right into the pollev website. It's going to ask you to drop in your name. You could put your name, or if not, you can just skip that part. Either or works. After you go to pollev.com and you have satisfied that step, you should see a question available, which is, if you don't hunt, why not? So give me 1 second while I just ignite that, and we'll go ahead and get going. Okay, so pollev.com/Sentinel team, specify your name, or if not, skip. And then we have our first question, which is, if you don't hunt, why not? One second. Yep, and we have also dropped to your link here in the chat as well. Give me 1 quick second. It seems like some of the results are not populating here. 1 second. I'm going to reshare one more time to see if the questions here populate and the answers. Give me one quick second. Ben, we'll just go back to this one. If you don't mind just going to the next demo, and I'll go ahead and get this going while you do that. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, no problem. Let me project. I need to share out the correct screen. All right, does everybody see my screen? Excellent. I'm going to assume that that's a yes. All right, so the next thing that I want to share is our ability to customize your hunting experience. So as you know, we have 200 built-in queries, but that may not be enough for you to fully make sure you've got the right coverage in your environment. So we allow the capability of making custom queries. That's how I got up to the 321 in the first part of the demo. So we've actually enhanced and customized that experience. So I am, one of the nice things about presenting is you have to switch between tabs, and this tab is not making my life easy. Okay. All right, we're gonna do that. Can everybody still see my screen okay? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna click the create a new query button. All right. Okay, so give me one moment to fill in some of this metadata. Make a new query, add a very descriptive description, and now I'm going to copy and paste a query into our query area. So this query is very simple. It looks at security events and of these create process, and we're going to look at subject accounts for actual users. So let's create that query. All right, make that big here. And now we're going to just search for it. Okay. Oh, I skipped over some very important parts of this query, parts of this demo, I'm sorry. Well, let's try that again. We're going to make it V5 this time. Okay, having some difficulties here. So what I'd like to be able to show you is the what we can do with our queries here. So let me, well, I'm sorry, I'm just going to skip to the next section. We have a capability in this particular query to be able to map MITRE techniques and map MITRE tactics, which I didn't do for hunting before. I just hit the create button. Sorry, I promise you that I practiced this a whole bunch. Let's go to my previous query. All right, I'll be able to show that here in just a second. So what we've been able to do with this particular query is be able to map both tactics and new entities. The reason to map MITRE tactics is to actually, of course, fill out what you were able to look at before on that MITRE ATT&CK map. So I'm going to show you what that looks like for our bookmark UI. So for those of you who aren't familiar with bookmarks, what you do is you run your hunting query, then you get a set of results. And then if you have a result that you think is really interesting, say this DC1 CXP Ninja thing, DC1 implies domain controller, that might be pretty interesting. Then I will select that, maybe another item, and I'll click Add Bookmark. And here I can automatically populate items from my custom query. So this is a create process alert. So I have, or a hunting query. So I have the ability to map many different topics in this particular, or columns to entities in this particular piece of user interface. So now I can use that in order to extract identifiers from my query, so I can very specifically identify that entity and then use that with features like entity pages, incidents, and our investigation graph in order to further drill into the details of that particular item. So here I can map a host. I've already mapped a host, and here it used to be that we could only map the host name, but now we can map a whole bunch of other identifiers in order to very specifically identify that host. So here we have the Azure ID, which I have mapped to the Azure Resource ID within my bookmark. Now I can do more entity types. It used to be that I could only do host, IP, URL, and account. Now I can do any kind of entity type that are supported by analytics. So here I've mapped process, and I've mapped command line and process ID to uniquely identify that process. I can also map multiple account entity instances. So here I've mapped multiple accounts. The first one would be for, say, the, let's see, subject. I would have the subject in here. Here I have an autocomplete here where I can say subject account. And in here I have, say, target name for, here I can map the target account. I also can get session IDs for each of these accounts. So they're now uniquely identified. So now I can put some notes in. Oh, I wanted to share that I have some tactics here. Where so you noticed the MITRE framework before. I have execution as one of my tactics, and I also have user execution as the technique under that tactic. Now I could also select sub-techniques, but that's not really what I want to do right now, because I don't necessarily know if there's going to be a malicious file in my security events or a malicious image or whatnot. So that would be my ability to look at and create bookmarks, and then map those to tactics and entities. Now I want to show you what a bookmark actually would look like and why that would be interesting. So let me make that UI just a little bit bigger. So now that I've mapped my my domain controller in a bookmark, one of the things I can do is I can click on that entity. So I've done this by just taking it from a log analytics query. There was no analytic created. I can just drill in from the information I extracted. So let this entity page take a sec, and I'll be able to get some more insights over it. All right, so here we go for what's going on with this particular domain controller. As you can see, I've got a bunch of contextual information, and I see what's my name is an action taken in the timeline. So I can get, in my proactive hunting, I can see there's 0 alerts on this particular item, so it would not have shown up to my incident queue. However, when I see what's my name as an activity, that can be very suspicious, especially when it's on a domain controller. So now I know that I've got something that's interesting that I should be working with. So now that I've gotten something that's useful, I also wanted to mention that we have the techniques built in, so I can click on that technique, and it takes me to the the MITRE mapping and gives me a specific description of what that looks like. And I've maintained all of my my query, my results from that particular query, and any annotations I would have made would have been created there. So now that I want to add this to an incident, we also have the ability to click on incident actions, where I can create a new incident or add that to an existing incident, which I believe was one of the questions that was published in the chat. And that concludes this very rocky demo. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Chris, would you like to take it from here?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, it seems like we're having some technical difficulties with poll everywhere. What I'm gonna do is just quickly share out the results for the first question that we had here, which is, if you don't hunt, why not? Let me go ahead and share that window. Give me one quick second. So if you don't hunt, why not? We did get some pretty good answers here. It seems like most of the audience today, they do perform hunting, which is great. So thumbs up for that. However, we did get some feedback here that some do not know how to get started, or their SOC is not mature enough to ignite proactive threat hunting. We do have a follow-up question here, which is, if you do hunt, what are your top goals? And please pick two for this poll here. All right, so my org doesn't hunt. Let's give it a few more seconds here. All right, so the answers are twinkling in here: investigating an existing security incident, improving detection coverage, and incorporating the MITRE ATT&CK framework. All right, here we go. It's super interesting to see the answers here. I do love that one of the top goals here is to improve the detection coverage and also investigating anomalies across the environment, and covering different use cases, for example, unusual network traffic to a high value asset. Let's give it 10 more seconds and we will continue to the next poll that we have here. Excellent. So it's great to understand your goals whenever you ignite that proactive threat hunting approach. That's going to be super critical, because that also defines the effectiveness of your threat hunt. But another question that we have here, and actually it seems like the investigating a existing security incident, it's definitely the winner for this poll here. But aside from knowing your top goals, a good driver is, how do you actually choose what to hunt on? And that's actually something that we definitely want to hone in, is how do you actually choose what you hunt on is going to be super critical when it comes to your threat hunting approach. So for this one, we want to better understand whether or not you're using the MITRE ATT&CK techniques or the MITRE ATT&CK framework as a way to hunt, whether or not you're using threat intelligence reports, like for example from Mystic or from other external resources, to conduct your hunting, whether or not you're using your red team's penetration test reports as well, anomaly detection. We also have here active security incident or close incident view, and we have experienced analyst intuition. Let's give it a couple seconds here to see what's a driver on how you choose what to hunt on. Seems here like a lot of folks do not hunt at the moment. Again, this is all good feedback, so thank you again for participating part of the poll. 33% active security incident or closed incident review. Let's give it 5 to 10 more seconds. Ben, if you have anything to add here, please feel to dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we totally understand and see from our telemetry that not everybody hunts, and that's fine. Most people have various stages within the maturity model for operating a SOC. And hunting is definitely one of those things that happens at the upper end of that maturity model. So we want to get everybody to the point where proactive hunting is something that's a regular part of everybody's operating case or operating procedures. But we understand that not everybody's there, and that's one of the main reasons why we're doing these webinars and asking for feedback, so we can understand specifically what we can do to provide more value and make things easier for you to be able to incorporate this into your SOC practices.
Definitely, right on, right on. And it seems here like active security incident or close incident preview is how most of the audience here chooses what to hunt on. So after you choose what to hunt on, you know what your top goals are. It's critical for you to understand one more thing. And that more thing is, how do you actually track your notes and results after you conduct your threat hunting? So that's actually the next poll that we have here. I'm going to ignite it now. You should be able to see that on the poll EV website at this moment. Let me go ahead and reshare as well. Okay. And for this one here, we have different, various different resources that we can use to track your notes and results. Incident tracking systems is a very popular way or vehicle to do that. Microsoft Sentinel Incidents, Hunting, Bookmarks, email or group chat, OneNote, Excel, Other, I Don't Track, and I Don't Hunt. Let's give it a few more seconds here to see how we actually track our notes and results after or while we're conducting our threat hunt. Excellent. Right now, 25% incident tracking system. So ticketing systems like, for example, Jira or ServiceNow seems to be a popular way to track your notes and results. Microsoft Sentinel Incidents, of course, using the comment section of the incident tab in Microsoft Sentinel is also a great way as well. Hunting Bookmarks, highly recommended, is another great feature that we have out of the box when it comes to the focus area of hunting in Microsoft Sentinel. Email or group chat, 19% now. Let's give it 5 to 10 more seconds to continue to our next demo, which is the ADX cross-resource query support, which is the final UI enhancement that we'll be covering during this webinar. Okay.
Yeah, and I want to give a couple more seconds for this to stabilize because my ADX demo is really quick. It's one of the easiest features that I have to talk to you guys about today. All right, it looks like it's stabilizing. I'll go ahead and present my screen one more time. So this is it. This is the demo. I will explain a little more context now. Many customers have run SOCs that are at a higher maturity level, and the SOC operators, as part of their job, they have to optimize costs and security value. And many of the customers that we've talked to bring a certain amount of data into log analytics, and then a certain amount of data goes to other sources that might be more economical or something that they want to potentially preserve for a longer period of time. So Azure Data Explorer and Cristhofer is one of those places. However, once the data goes outside of log analytics, it's very hard to use that data in a way that within Sentinel in a way that is useful. And so what we've started now is to be able to use some of that data outside of Sentinel within the Azure hunting experience. And here we're taking advantage of Azure Data Explorer ADX cross-resource queries. So this is a very simple function to use. You take your ADX function, and then in the as the parameter, you specify the database that you want to connect to. So the first part of the URL is the cluster. The part after the slash is the name of the database. And then afterwards, you put a dot and you have your table. This is public data right now. So you can see I do a take 5, and then I'm able to access the public data that's available to me in this external Custo cluster. And the intent there is that when you aren't storing your data within Log Analytics and you're storing your data in Azure Data Explorer, you can still get to it. You can still hunt on it. You can include this in custom queries and then run them whenever you get to the hunting dashboard without having to recreate the query. As I said, super easy demo. All right, Chris, back to you.
Back to us, yeah, definitely. Again, thanks again, Ben, for the great explanation there when it comes to ADX and what we can do in Sentinel at the moment. Whenever we talk about SIMs, we have to talk about long-term retention. And the next poll that we currently have here available is, does your organization store or plan to retain long-term data? And the answer here is no, we have no need. Not yet. We want to store long-term data, but have no immediate plans. Soon we have to plan. We plan to store long-term data. 12 months. Yes, we currently retain long-term data. All right. The answers are trickling in now. And this right here is super, super critical because this allows us to understand why you want to retain that data, which is actually the next question we have here. So that's a very critical element to operating a SIM and making sure that you have the right long-term retention policies across your SOC as well. Let's give it a few more seconds here for the answers to stabilize. Seems like most folks here currently retain long-term data. And then we have 24% of not yet. We want to store long-term data, but have no immediate plans. Okay, let's give it 5 more seconds. So the follow-up question here, and the reason why we're asking is that, if you do retain data and you are looking to have that data available across your SOC, the next question is, here is, why do you actually retain that data? Why is that data critical, and why do you need to have that data across your SOC and also across Microsoft Sentinel available? And here we have various different reasons. Number one is compliance. Other one here, security investigations, legal evidence, or other. So the why behind you storing the data is super, super critical. Compliance is definitely a very popular reason why. There's regulatory standards that you have to abide by that require you to retain data for X amount of time in order for you to be compliant. That's definitely one that is a very valid reason why you want a long-term data. We also have here, security investigation, making sure you have the right coverage when it comes to the depth and the breadth of the data that you have across your SOC. And legal evidence, of course, as part of incident response, is another critical reason why.
I noticed that we have an entry under other. If you could put that other in the chat, that would be really helpful so I could understand what additional scenarios we're missing. Thank you.
All right, so it seems like compliance is number one, security investigation seems like to be number two, and legal evidence number three. Again, if you did have other, please drop that in the chat. It'll be critical for us to understand that additional reason of you retaining data. in Microsoft Sentinel. Next one here that we have is that if you retain data or plan to retain data, if you retain data or plan to retain data, long-term data, what is your retention period? And actually, this one I saw here that I actually do not have it within my list here, so we'll just continue to the next one, which is around how much data are we actually talking about when it comes to long-term storage. That is critical for us to understand as well. The volume of data that you're looking to retain across your SOC, or if not Microsoft Sentinel. So here we have 1 terabyte, 10 terabyte, 100 terabytes, and then of course we go into the petabytes as well.
And the time period we're talking about, it would be something you're storing for at least 90 days. And if you prefer not to say, we have an option for that as well.
Excellent, excellent, perfect. Let's give it a few more seconds to let the answer stabilize. Okay, seems like lots of folks do not store long-term data. Those that do are within that 10 terabyte to 10 petabyte range of data at the moment. All right, so let's go into the next one, which is around what methods would you prefer to query your long-term data. So I just ignited it, I just activated it, so it should be in poll EV at the moment. Okay, so here we have a lot of different methods. Please pick two. Here we have KQL, SQL, regex, Java, Jupyter Notebooks, keyword, natural language, Splunk, other, and also none available. Excellent. So KQL seems to be right now the preferred method to query your long-term data. That's excellent. We also have here Jupyter Notebooks, which is another great asset that we have within Microsoft Sentinel to really go deeper and go to that next level when it comes to threat hunting. Let's give it a few more seconds here. Excellent, excellent. So KQL seems to be the preferred way to query data when it comes to Microsoft Sentinel and also your long-term data as well. So actually, Ben, I wanted to ask you a question. Since we talked about the importance of how do you choose to hunt, whether or not you correlate the MITRE ATT&CK framework, what would you recommend customers that are just getting started, those that do not hunt, as we saw from the feedback from the poll? What do you recommend them as the entry point in order for them to get started and get that proactive threat hunting journey going?
Well, as I showed today, we've done the best we can with the threat hunting dashboard in order to get things started quite easily. We already have 200 queries from the Mystic team put together in the dashboard, and all you need to do is click that Run All button and then filter just to take a look at some of the things that might be emergent within your platform. One of the things that is important as a hunter is to be able to understand what data sources you're looking at, what sort of attack patterns you're looking at, and then being able to use KQL in order to understand what sort of behaviors are happening in your environment, be able to narrow down the false positive or unapplicable results, and be able to pivot to be able to refine your hypotheses. So that's going to be very important for you to develop those skills in order to hunt effectively. Another option that we've seen people do is they wait until an active threat, and things like SolariGate or Hafnium or Nobelium, or more recently OMI, OMG come around, and at this point, usually the Mystic team will publish a blog with some very specific instructions as to providing the context around an attack, or provide information as to which queries you want to use, which order, and how you can chain the results from one query to the next in order to more easily understand what's happening in your environment. Additionally, we have some Jupyter notebooks that are built into the product and also available through blogs, which are also surprisingly easy to use. They're often based on Python, but don't be intimidated. What you can do is hit run cell, run cell, and that will walk you through specifically what sort of results there are to glean. And the nice thing about Jupyter notebooks is they have some nice custom visualizations that you might want to use. That's another topic for another time, but if you're interested, put a comment in the chat, and we can definitely follow up if that's a topic that you're more interested in. So I hope I covered the groundwork there. I see we have a few more minutes if you want to take additional questions.
We do have some unanswered questions here. The first one is, how long can you retain data in Law and ADX for long-term data retention?
So LA, we get 90 days for free, and then afterwards, depending on the region, it'll have different costs. In East US, I believe it's 10 cents per gig per month. And then in ADX, I'm not 100% familiar with the extent of the retention period. I can tell you that the costs just for storage tend to be a lot cheaper, but you're going to have to pay a cost whenever you do queries on it. I'm sorry, I don't have the specific figures off the top of my head, and it will vary per region as well.
Yeah, and to that, sorry, Ashley, just to add on to that, when it comes to log analytics, we can retain data up to 730 days, depending on your region. And then after that, that's where you will, if you want to retain data long term, that's where you will go ahead and, look at ADX or blob storage as your resources or vehicles to retain over that 730-day period.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question. Is there any way Azure Data Factory to create an ADX with Sentinel, Intune, Microsoft Security Defender, and other sources?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of the question.
Is there any resources for using Azure Data Factory to create an ADX with Sentinel, Intune, Microsoft Security Defender, and other sources?
At the moment, no, but that is one of the things that we are exploring for our roadmap. The ADX is one data source, but Azure Data Factory, Azure Data Lake, these are other places where we know that people store their data, and we would like to understand what's most important for you guys to support. As for being able to combine Sentinel, Intune, and Defender, there's some work going on to incorporate Defender into log analytics. This is all under NDA, of course. And I believe there may be some other efforts around Intune, but I'd have to get back to you on specifics.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have all of our questions answered. So thank you, Ben and Cristhofer, for being our guests today and for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer questions. At the same time, for anyone who missed the beginning of the webinar, I would like to remind the listeners of our 3 webinars tomorrow morning. Create your own Microsoft Sentinel solutions at 8 a.m., Defending Windows Server with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint at 9 a.m., and Azure Security Ignite 2021 updates at 10 a.m. The best way to make sure you don't miss these webinars or any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/securitycommunity And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, and recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We'd love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. Thank you and see you next time. Goodbye.